Welcome to College Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: why November could decide Senate control for years. Will Biden and Trump face one another in presidential debates? There's no commitment yet. Super Bowl 5 quick hits, Kelsey loses the plot and the crucial missed extra point. Finland's new president enters NATO era just as Trump shakes the alliance. Monday's time schedule. Why November could decide Senate control for years. CNN. Senate Democrats are facing a challenging election in 2024. Democrats will be defending more seats in states won by Donald Trump in 2020 than ever before. Meanwhile, Republicans are not defending any Senate seats in states won by President Joe Biden in 2020. Democrats are hoping that Biden can improve his position in these key swing states before the elections in November. If Biden performs well, it could position Democrats to remain competitive in the battle for Senate control through the remainder of this decade, even if they narrowly lose the majority in November. However, if Biden loses most of the swing states, Democrats could fall into a Senate deficit too large to realistically overcome for years, which would have implications for legislation and the future of the Supreme Court. Will Biden and Trump face one another in presidential debates? There's no commitment yet. Associated Press. There are doubts on whether Donald Trump, Joe Biden, and Nikki Haley will confront each other on a stage this year. Trump has refused to join Republican National Committee debates and criticized the rules of the nonpartisan commission that hosts general election debates. Biden's campaign has declined to commit to joining debates with Trump. Both Trump and Biden have faced doubts from voters about their age and readiness. In addition, there is lingering animosity from their debates 4 years ago. The uncertainty reflects how both candidates are increasingly choosing to reach voters in environments they control. Debates are not mandatory, but they have been considered a traditional test for candidates where they have no aides or teleprompters. The first televised presidential debate was between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy in 1960, but it did not become a recurring event until 1976. It is too early to write off the prospect of debates in 2024, according to Frank Fahrenkopf, co-chair of the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. Super Bowl 5 quick hits, Kelsey loses the plot and the crucial missed extra point. ABC. Super Bowl 58 was an exciting game, with the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. The match featured a sideline argument between Travis Kelce and coach Andy Reid, a trick play touchdown by the 49ers, and a crucial blocked extra point by the 49ers. The game also saw the longest field goals in Super Bowl history, with Jake Moody and Harrison Butker both setting records. The 49ers suffered injuries to linebacker Dre Greenlaw and wide receiver Deebo Samuel. The blocked extra point ultimately led to the game going into overtime. Finland's new president enters NATO era just as Trump shakes the alliance. The Sydney Morning Herald. Centre-right politician Alexander Stubb has been elected as Finland's new president in the country's first national election since joining NATO. Stubb will be responsible for foreign policy during a time of shifting geopolitical order and increasingly fraught relations between NATO and Russia. The president will play a significant role in determining Finland's position within NATO, which has been met with threats from Russia. Stubb has expressed his desire to bolster transatlantic relations and has taken a tough line on Russia. Monday's time schedule. Associated Press. Here are the key games in the NBA, NHL, and college basketball on Monday, February 12. In the NBA, the Indiana Pacers will play the Charlotte Hornets, the Philadelphia 76ers will face the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Golden State Warriors will go up against the Utah Jazz. In the NHL, the Arizona Coyotes will play the Philadelphia Flyers, the Calgary Flames will face the New York Rangers, and the Minnesota Wild will go up against the Vegas Golden Knights. In college basketball, the number 4 Kansas Jayhawks will face the number 23 Texas Tech Red Raiders, and the number 9 Duke Blue Devils will go up against the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. Health behemoth sheds $7 billion in value after heart drug fails trial. The Sydney Morning Herald. Australian healthcare company CSL has announced that a late-stage trial of its CSL-112 drug has failed to deliver its desired results. CSL-112 was developed to reduce the risk of another major adverse heart event in patients who have already suffered from a heart attack. While there were no safety concerns with the drug, CSL has said that there are no plans for a regulatory filing in the near future. CSL is due to release its half-year results on Tuesday. Who is responsible for CPS student safety behavior on their way to and from school? Yahoo! A series of violent incidents involving schoolchildren in Cincinnati has rekindled debate over Cincinnati Public Schools' transportation strategy. The district has been plagued by logistical issues since the cessation of specialized school routes by Metro in 2021, leading to many students having to wait at bus stops for daily transfers. Cincinnati's Board of Education President, Eve Bolton, has said the situation is exacerbated by the stress of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to a rise in mental health and behavioral issues. Cincinnati Public Schools, the city, and the Southwest Ohio Regional Transit Authority are working together to find long-term solutions to keep students safe on their journeys to and from school. However, impending budget cuts could mean that the district has fewer funds available for a new or revised transportation strategy in the coming school year. The situation has prompted calls for Metro's extra routes, which ran directly to school doors, to be reinstated. However, Metro declined to comment on whether this was feasible. Xi Jinping's never-ending hunt for corruption. BBC. Chinese President Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign is unlikely to end as it has become a central part of his governance approach. The campaign is used to remove anyone who deviates from Xi's way of doing things, leading some to characterize him as a Stalin-like figure. However, others argue that Xi's fear of corruption is not delusional and that he has capitalized on the crackdown for political advantage. The campaign has targeted various sectors, including banking and the military, and has resulted in the punishment of numerous officials. However, there are concerns that the crackdown could be stifling creativity and innovation in the economy. Scientists probe high and low in rare study of winter air pollution. The Globe and Mail. A team of over 100 scientists and technical experts have set up equipment around Canada's CN Tower as part of a study into air pollution. The project, called SWAPIT, Study of Winter Air Pollution in Toronto, aims to improve scientists' understanding of the complex mix of pollutants that city dwellers are exposed to in winter. The results of the study will be used to inform the management of cold weather pollution in urban centers across Canada and at similar latitudes elsewhere. The researchers will examine the effects of different sources of pollution, including wood-burning fireplaces, furnaces, and road salt. The project will also examine the effects of the pollution on Toronto's urban ecology. The Environmental Protection Act, implemented last year, requires that research and monitoring activities be conducted to support the right to a healthy environment. Researchers from Toronto Public Health will examine how pollution exposure varies according to socioeconomic factors and location across the city. Schools in budget crisis as PFI charges soar. BBC. UK schools are facing rising costs to meet the terms of their contracts with private firms under the Private Finance Initiative, PFI. PFI schools are locked into contracts lasting 25 to 30 years, with charges increasing in line with the highest measure of inflation. More than 900 schools in England were built under PFI contracts, with the first opening in 1999. The initiative was abandoned in 2018. PFI costs rise in line with the Retail Price Index, a measure of inflation which is no longer used by the government. The contracts are covered by non-disclosure agreements, but some head teachers have spoken out about rising costs. For example, Middlefield Primary in Liverpool reported that almost 20% of its budget was now spent on meeting PFI contract demands. The costs have forced the school to make savings elsewhere, such as not replacing 4 classroom staff members since 2020. In Trump-Biden rematch, the only sure loser is China. Bloomberg. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is proposing a 60% tariff on all Chinese imports, a move that would essentially eliminate the $575 billion trade pipeline between the two countries, according to Bloomberg Economics. Trump's tough stance on China could put pressure on incumbent President Joe Biden to take harsher measures leading up to the 2024 election. While Biden may not propose anything as drastic as Trump's tariffs, his administration has already introduced new restrictions on data flows, electric vehicles, and other industries. Trump's tariffs would have a significant impact on China's economy, particularly in textiles and electronics, while Southeast Asia and Mexico would likely pick up the largest share of the trade slack. U.S. electronics firms would also suffer, as many of them manufacture their products in China. Additionally, American companies and consumers would face higher prices for imports. China is bracing itself for the possibility of escalating economic conflict with the U.S. Beijing is already dealing with a property crisis and a stock market slump, and intensified tensions with the U.S. could worsen the situation. Trump is currently leading in polls and has a history of taking aggressive action against China, while Biden has indicated a desire to work with U.S. allies to pressure China. However, Biden has also implemented export curbs on semiconductors and chip-making equipment and is setting up a screening program for U.S. investment in key industries. Trump's proposals are already causing concern among investors, and China's economy may face additional pressure before the election. Trump's proposed 60% tariff on Chinese imports would have a dramatic effect on the trade relationship between the US and China. The tariffs would essentially eliminate the trade pipeline between the two countries, leading to significant economic consequences for China. Biden may not propose anything as drastic as Trump's tariffs, but his administration has already implemented new restrictions on various industries. The impact of the US-China trade war has been negative for China, contributing to a slide in growth and creating uncertainty in corporate boardrooms and financial markets. China's economy may face further pressure as tensions with the US continue to escalate. Crime to buses, Wellingborough by-election in charts. BBC. A by-election will be held on February 15 in the Wellingborough constituency after former Conservative MP Peter Bone was removed following a recall petition. The seat in Northamptonshire has around 80,000 voters and was once a centre for footwear manufacturing. Crime has been a key issue in the area, with figures showing a 70% increase in selected offences involving knives or sharp instruments in Northamptonshire between March 2014 and March 2023, although there has been a decline from a peak in 2021. Labour candidate Jen Kitchen said knife crime was definitely a problem in the area, but praised the work of voluntary sector organizations and local charities in reducing numbers through school outreach and knife amnesty bins. Liberal Democrat candidate Anna Savage Gunn said the police service had lost a lot of experienced officers and was now unstructured. Conservative candidate Helen Harrison said reversing cuts to the police force and implementing safer streets initiatives were key priorities, while Reform UK's Ben Habib said a healthy economy was crucial for reducing crime. Governor Dunleavy points to national study in his push to expand Alaska charter schools. It's drawing scrutiny from lawmakers and school officials. Yahoo! Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy has used a study published last year that ranked Alaskan charter schools as the best in the nation to back his education priorities. Dunleavy has said he will veto any education bill that does not include a plan to increase the number of charter schools, and has said charter schools in the state outperformed other public schools. However, the study, which tracked how more than 2,400 students performed on the National Assessment of Educational Progress, has been criticized for its small sample size and limitations. Researchers and school officials have said that Alaska charter school students are not representative of the broader population, and have a different demographic makeup to students in the rest of the lower 48 states. The study has also been criticized for not taking into account the state's geography and the concentration of charter schools in urban areas, while others have raised issues of access and equity, and said comparisons are difficult given the significant number of Alaskan students who have no choice in where they go to school. With time running short, UCLA narrows its search to replace Chip Kelly. Yahoo! UCLA has corresponded with more than 12 potential football coach candidates, including Stanford coach Troy Taylor, Nebraska defensive coordinator Tony White, Las Vegas Raiders running backs coach Deshaun Foster, Cleveland Browns tight ends coach Tommy Rees, and Baltimore Ravens special teams coordinator Chris Horton, according to one person familiar with the search process. Look back to a special train commemorating Anglo-French friendship, 1949. Yahoo! A special train called the French Thank You Train arrived in Anniston, Alabama in 1949 to express gratitude for U.S. help during the war. Representatives of the French people and gifts were brought on the train. W.C. Wilson, a prominent businessman in Anniston, passed away at the age of 68. In 1999, a national study found that Alabama's Medicaid regulations left low-income working parents without health insurance, as the state's eligibility caps for Medicaid coverage were the lowest in the nation. This meant that around 78,000 Alabama parents with incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level did not have health insurance. The study also found that poor parents who worked were twice as likely to be uninsured compared to those who were unemployed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your friendly neighborhood 6 doctor, coming to you live from the 6-dimensional headquarters of 6 Degrees. Today, we have quite the lineup of news stories to discuss, so let's jump right in. First up, we have the upcoming Senate elections in the United States. Democrats are facing a tough challenge in 2024, as they will be defending more seats in states won by Donald Trump in 2020 than ever before. However, they are hoping that President Joe Biden can improve his position in these key swing states before the elections in November. If Biden performs well, it could position Democrats to remain competitive in the battle for Senate control through the remainder of this decade. But if Biden loses most of the swing states, Democrats could fall into a Senate deficit too large to overcome for years. So, November could decide Senate control for years to come. Next, we have the question of whether there will be presidential debates in 2024. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden have faced doubts about their age and readiness, and there is lingering animosity from their debates 4 years ago. Trump has refused to join Republican National Committee debates, while Biden's campaign has declined to commit to joining debates with Trump. Debates have been a traditional test for candidates, but both candidates are increasingly choosing to reach voters in environments they control. So, it remains to be seen if we'll see a rematch on the debate stage. Moving on to sports, we had an exciting Super Bowl 58, with the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the San Francisco 49ers in overtime. The game featured a sideline argument, a trick play touchdown, and a crucial missed extra point. We also saw the longest field goals in Super Bowl history. It was a thrilling game that had fans on the edge of their seats. In international news, Finland has elected Alexander Stubb as its new president. Stubb will be responsible for foreign policy during a time of shifting geopolitical order and increasingly fraught relations between NATO and Russia. Finland's position within NATO has been met with threats from Russia, and Stubb has expressed his desire to bolster transatlantic relations and take a tough line on Russia. It will be interesting to see how Finland navigates these challenging times. Now, let's talk about some upcoming games in the sports world. In the NBA, we have the Indiana Pacers versus the Charlotte Hornets, the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the Golden State Warriors versus the Utah Jazz. In the NHL, we have the Arizona Coyotes versus the Philadelphia Flyers, the Calgary Flames versus the New York Rangers, and the Minnesota Wild versus the Vegas Golden Knights. And in college basketball, we have some exciting matchups, including the number 4 Kansas Jayhawks versus the number 23 Texas Tech Red Raiders and the number 9 Duke Blue Devils versus the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. So, sports fans, get ready for some thrilling action on the court and ice. In other news, Australian healthcare company CSL has announced that a late-stage trial of its heart drug has failed to deliver desired results. While there were no safety concerns with the drug, CSL has said that there are no plans for a regulatory filing in the near future. This is a setback for the company, which will release its half-year results tomorrow. Let's hope they can bounce back from this disappointment. Now, let's talk about an issue closer to home: school safety and transportation strategy. In Cincinnati, a series of violent incidents involving schoolchildren has raised concerns about student safety on their way to and from school. The logistical issues since the cessation of specialized school routes have led to many students having to wait at bus stops for daily transfers. The situation has been exacerbated by the stress of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to a rise in mental health and behavioral issues. The city, the school district, and the transit authority are working together to find long-term solutions to keep students safe. However, impending budget cuts could make it challenging to implement a new transportation strategy. It's a complex issue, but one that needs to be addressed for the safety of our students. In international news, Chinese President Xi Jinping's anti-corruption campaign continues to be a central part of his governance approach. The campaign is used to remove anyone who deviates from Xi's way of doing things, but there are concerns that it could stifle creativity and innovation in the economy. However, others argue that Xi's fear of corruption is not delusional and that he has capitalized on the crackdown for political advantage. It's a delicate balance, and only time will tell how it will shape China's future. Now, let's move on to a fascinating study being conducted in Canada. A team of scientists is setting up equipment around the CN Tower to study air pollution in Toronto during the winter. The project aims to improve our understanding of the complex mix of pollutants that city dwellers are exposed to and inform the management of cold weather pollution in urban centers across Canada. They will examine the effects of different sources of pollution, including wood-burning fireplaces, furnaces, and road salt. It's an important study that will help us better protect our environment and our health. In the UK, schools are facing rising costs to meet the terms of their contracts under the Private Finance Initiative, PFI. More than 900 schools were built under PFI contracts, with charges increasing in line with the highest measure of inflation. This is putting a strain on school budgets, and some schools are struggling to meet their contractual obligations. It's a challenging situation that needs to be addressed to ensure that our schools have the resources they need to provide a quality education. And finally, we have the ongoing US-China trade war. Former President Donald Trump is proposing a 60% tariff on all Chinese imports, which would essentially eliminate the trade pipeline between the two countries. While President Joe Biden may not propose anything as drastic, his administration has already introduced new restrictions on various industries. The trade war has had a negative impact on China's economy, contributing to a slide in growth and creating uncertainty in corporate boardrooms and financial markets. China is bracing itself for the possibility of escalating economic conflict with the US, which could worsen its current economic situation. Well, folks, that's all the news we have for today. I hope you enjoyed this lively discussion of current events. Remember, your thoughts and opinions are always welcome. So, what are your thoughts on these news stories? Let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.